Now and then, really on rare occasions, we get a request that might sound obvious to some people. But then when we dig deeper into it, we'll find out, well, that wasn't so obvious after all. And that's the case with this question. This request says, I'm a little confused about local color. Grass, cast shadow situation, etc. Do you have a demo on that anywhere? Well, I will after this. Well, now the general public would call grass green, sky blue. General public would look at a tree and probably call it gray, and I have heard people call trees brown. And there's some greens, like colors of shirts and whatever, that some people will call olive. Some reds or red violets that people will call magenta. And that's those are generic names that have emerged in our society that describe or label a certain kind of color. Also, local color is simply the color that the thing is when we're holding it. If we're really, really close to it where the lights and shadows aren't affecting it, we see an overall color that we identify. For example, an orange, if I were holding an orange in my hand and there wasn't a whole lot of distinctive light and shadow, I'd call that orange, and that kind of registers in my mind, orange. So that's a very general thing. That's local color. But as painters, when we are painting images of color, we identify it as a particular local color, but we have to do other things to it in order to interpret that color. Let me show you what I'm talking about. It depends on lots of things, but heavily on the kind of light the thing is under. Now I have three photos of pumpkins in a field, and you can see they're all under different lighting. Now I cropped them so I could fit them all onto this page and still have them have you be able to see them. But you can see this one is an overcast sky, so you don't see you see very subtle. You can see some subtle changes, which I'll talk about in a moment, but you don't see those changes as abrupt as you see in this one, which is a direct light. The sun is not overcast. So you notice here how strong that little division is between where the light rays are hitting the pumpkin and where it goes into shadow. And we don't have that strong division here, but we do have a change in what people would call color. But if you call that hue instead of color, and you can identify, here I go again, if you can identify on the color wheel, then you can figure out what to do to show that. So we start out with, okay, that's an orange pumpkin. But what do I do to interpret that orange to make that appear like a three-dimensional orange pumpkin? Now, I want to show you, first of all, this is really, really interesting. I want to show you the difference that the light makes in the color of the image itself. All right, so here I'm going to find this about this much light on this pumpkin in overcast light. Now, this is almost dark. This, I didn't talk about this one. This one is almost dark. There really is no real sunlight on it. The sun is just about setting. So it's almost dark. And I'll put, do you see the difference in those two colors? Because of the way the light's shining. Now, some of that may be camera interpretation, but it's not that much camera interpretation. All right, then if I go over to this pumpkin in about that same area, do you see that is a brighter orange than this one? The sunlight brings the hue out. Darkness takes the hue away. So the less light is there, the more hue goes away. So this, you can't see as much hue. You can't see as much orange in this, yet it's still an orange pumpkin. If I go out at night, pick this pumpkin, bring it inside. If I go out in an overcast and pick one next to it, bring it inside. If I go out, then when the sun is shining and pick this one and bring it inside, they all look like they were picked from the same place at the same time, because they all then have whatever light that they're under influencing the color that we see. So I'm going to do just a little bit of a demonstration here to show you how to figure that out, because that does seem to stump a lot of people. So it's confusing what you know local color to be with what we really need to do with color to interpret any color we see according to what kind of light is under, and how that's being affected by weather and all those kinds of things, and well, basically that, and also about the environments in it. Sometimes the environment can cause the color to change. This pumpkin really, really deep, it may be influenced by it now, would also be reflecting some of that green that's around it. And a lot of times we might see in a light, on a shiny surface, we might see some sky color reflecting into it. That's not, it's not really a mirror image of the sky, but the color rays from the sky are influencing. But I want to give you just a couple of little pointers here about how to go about that, so that you can know how to think about how to do this. Those of you who are kind of confused about it. So let's see, our orange. Now, if I'm mixing a color for this pumpkin, let's start here. If I'm mixing a color for that pumpkin, then I need to start somewhere. On the color wheel, I can see that that particular pumpkin, it's more or less kind of between orange and yellow orange, and so I can start there. And so what I'll do, I'll go to a yellow orange here. This color that I'm pulling down is cadmium yellow deep, made by Rembrandt. I'll put that down. Now I know that to get that, if I hold this on the palette knife right here, I see I need a little bit more orange. I can add some sort of red to it, and I'll just take a tad, just a touch of alizarin crimson, and mix that in with it, and let's see what that does. If I mix it too fast, and which I almost did there, too soon, and I chose alizarin crimson, I could have chosen this, which is cadmium red light, but it's not a bright orange, it's not a fully saturated orange, and so that's why I chose alizarin crimson, and that's another thing that we take into consideration. Or you see how close I am here to that color. Perhaps I could add just a little bit of that yellow orange back into that mixture right here. Now, let's see. Okay, I'm pretty close right there. Now notice how as it catches more of the overall sky light, the overcast that's reflecting down on it, it gets a little bit more yellow. And so we can add a little bit more yellow there. And, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to make these little swatches, color swatches here, so that you can see this. So this is the color mixture. Now the color I'm referring to as orange, or in this case it would be, well, this is orange, and this is a lower saturation of orange. You see I'm pretty close right there. Now, as the pumpkin turns more, catches a little bit more of that skylight right there, it becomes a little bit more yellow. It leans a little bit more towards that yellow orange, and so it leans a little bit. Let's put that over here. Leans a little bit more. See, it doesn't seem like much change there. Make just a little bit more change right here, like that, and you can see a very subtle change there. But that's a very subtle change there. Now, as it comes on around here, in this photograph, it appears to be, you say, okay, it's just getting darker. Well, of course, but what's making it darker? And you could say, well, it's getting cooler. It's like it's getting bluer. Actually, it feels like it's getting maybe a little bit more purple. So what if I did this? And these kinds of things, we sort of, sometimes we kind of play with the ideas before we make a final choice. So this is a purple I have right here, and I'm just putting a very thin part because it's very strong. And I'm just going to move gradually. I'm just going to move that brush into that, and pull it down like that. And I'm going to see, is that what I'm looking at? Now that was just purple. That was dioxazine purple. And then I'm saying, oh wow, that's not really it. That is looking, this is looking, it's certainly looking more neutral. So that would make sense because yellow and violet, yellow and purple are complements to each other. So they're going to make each other more neutral. But that seems to be feeling a little bit redder too. So you ask yourself those questions when you're doing this. As it's moving around, it seems to be getting not only leaning a little bit more purple, but it seems to be getting a little bit redder at the same time. So it's getting closer to what I'm making right here. Do you see that? See right here. Just a little bit closer to that. So now you can see there that we would need to have these changes in that color as we move around, not only making it darker, but that orange that we call the local color of orange on the pumpkin is actually changing color as it goes deeper and deeper into shadow. And the deeper it goes into shadow, the more that color changes. Now, if you will look in the deeper part of the shadow, you don't see any orange anymore. Let's see if we can do that. Where the orange totally disappears. Is that it right there? Let's see. Is this it? This is very close to it right there. See, you don't really see any orange in that. That's what happens as anything that has color in it moves away from light and gets more and more into shadow. The hue goes away. The actual color goes away. And then we reach that point where we can't see any local color anymore. So this person also said, what about shadows? Well, a cast shadow, we don't really have a cast shadow. Well, we do have a little bit over here. Yeah, we have a cast shadow right here. Where this pumpkin is casting a shadow on this one, you see the same thing is happening. The color goes away. But it's the local color on this pumpkin that goes away because the light's been taken away from it. Now, you see here, we don't really see any local color. We don't see the local color. We would call it orange. The pumpkin is in the field. It's all right. It's almost dark. It's dust, but we can still see it, and we would still call it an orange pumpkin. It's not an orange pumpkin anymore. In other words, most of the orange has gone away. So you could see right in here, pretty much right in here, the color that we would need for this one right here. So I think the important thing is to, when you're looking at color, if you identify it as the local color, okay, fine. But then what would you need to do to interpret that? Because you're seeing that local color in a certain kind of light, in a three-dimensional form. So what would you need to do? And there's another thing I would like to just drive home a point for you. And that is to recognize that if you call colors the design names or the clothing names like olive, magenta, beige, brown, gray, those kinds of things don't really describe color. They're a label we put on colors that we've become accustomed to, and somebody gave them a label because they resemble the color of something else. But I don't know where the word brown came from, but somebody will tell me, I'm sure. But anyway, all those originated right here on the color wheel. So always, when you're trying to come up with the local color, if you're calling it one of those generic names, switch your language to one of these names right here. If you switch because these describe the hues of those colors, and then these will guide you as to which way or what you can do, colors you need to add into what you're looking at in order to make it look like what your eyes are actually seeing. Play with that idea. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianeMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter And that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.